unpopular opinions when he said,
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's episode of Fake Accents Unite. I am joined right now by the affable Britisher. Good evening, sir. Good evening. And also by a special guest this week who decided to interrupt my statutory intro. Rubber comedy.
I tell you what I did. I went. I have a drink. I have a drink behind me on another shelf, and I turned around, grabbed the drink, and I didn't know we'd gone live.
Strong. When I said let's get on with it, generally it's going live. But thanks, Rubber, for trying to do that.
So last week I ruined AA's show. Now this week I ruined yours.
Of course, I don't know about ruin. We're only 2 minutes in. We will also be joined by Daughter of Albion, Sarah, in about 15 or so minutes, she tells me. But she's running a little late. And our main story of the evening, which she's keen to talk about. But yeah, no. So how are you guys doing? How is life in YouTube land and beyond?
Well, you know, one is hanging on in there. One has had one's latest video demonetized yet again by YouTube.
Has one? One has done one?
Yes.
I'm curious about the demonetization thing because I checked on two Fake Accents Unite, one which was demonetized and one which was not, and they've both made basically the same money anyway. Yeah. So I wonder whether or not it means anything at this point.
Well, you know, when it comes to when it comes to the money side, that's not really what one is concerned about. It's more a matter of the actual promotion of videos.
True. You want those sweet view counts.
You want people to see it, and you basically want people to see it and effectively get more subscribers. And if they basically demonetize it, I know they have denied this, but everybody is convinced that if you're demonetized, you don't get the promotion. Because why would they promote videos on which they themselves can't earn any money because they're not showing any adverts?
Yeah, true.
So that basically means that you get relegated to a lower tier, effectively, when it comes to the promotion of your own video.
Oh, I know, Britisher. I know. Welcome to political YouTube.
Yes.
They are interfering with
the thing of beauty.
They're interfering with the market because you have a product, people want the product, and they're stopping you from reaching your customer base.
Yes, indeed they are. And it just becomes somewhat frustrating when you kind of see that this kind of happens almost by rules, if you know what I mean. But we're just keeping our fingers crossed that at some point something is going to happen. But who knows?
Chat saying, seeing as I've put naked in the title, I might as well change this to Fake Accents Unite gone sexual.
Fake Accents Unite blue.
Blue, yes, I like that.
God.
Yes.
Dear. Who won, Hitchens or Mark? I mean, no one. It wasn't a competition.
So you mean to say you didn't actually arm wrestle off camera?
No, it was mud wrestling, man. You know this already. Why are people asking about a hat giveaway? I don't know. I've never said that there's going to be a hat giveaway. Thank you, Lord Pterodax, for both donating super chats but also spreading false information in my comments section. And he says, for £5, the third biscuit is immoral. And that's a quote from Ayatollah al-Academic. Decrees it. I have no idea.
Yes, I talking of rumors going round and whatever, I sort of coincidentally, of course, accidentally on purpose, start a rumor of my own on the week that was, which led to a great many people in my comment section from now on referring to Sargon of Akkad as Susan.
Susan of Akkad, yes.
Yes.
One has one's back channels in which to communicate with said gentleman.
Have you talked to Carl about this?
He just sent me a one-line message.
Go on.
Which read, "I'll see you in court."
It was a very Fry and Laurie thing to use the name Susan for comic effect. I think they used to say things was it in Blackadder or Fry and Laurie where they would go, well, slap me sideways and call me Susan.
Along those lines, yes.
Mm-hmm. Scowen has brought up something which I intend to address for anyone who's not here and who hasn't already clicked off the video. You may notice a small change to my avatar this week.
What change is that? Looks the same as ever to me.
Well, you would think that, wouldn't you? You blind old brain. But the Susan of a cat. I am enjoying my new avatar. Yes, Scowen. I lost a bet last week where Scowen. I made a bet with him that he wouldn't give me £100
Technically, you claim to have lost a bet, whereas what it actually really was is that you successfully goaded the chat into giving you $100.
Thank you, Britisher. Yes, I successfully goaded Scowen into paying me £100 flat, and this caused an avatar change, which I probably should have said was for a week, and has ended up being for 4 weeks. So
4 months, wasn't it?
No, it's not 4 months.
4 months.
So unfortunately, you're stuck with me and this. I assume it's unicorn going forward. Sarah thinks it's adorable, but
she would.
There you go. Ratface has donated $5. Thank you. Says Susan of a cat. Oh, I tell you, Susan, you've changed quite a lot in recent times in avatar and name. But there you go. Shill accents unite. Minion Mark whoring his avatar for money. Yeah, that's what AA thinks, basically. But I just call it successful capitalism, and we'll leave it at that, eh? Oh, dear. Have you seen anything uniquely interesting in the news this week, Britisher or Rhubba, that you feel would be a good intro story for us?
A certain Cambridge academic.
We are waiting for Sarah for that particular naked professor.
Another one.
Yes. We could relate to something related to that particular issue. I believe the gentleman's name is Adam Levine.
The guy from Maroon 5.
Yes. And he sung at the Super Bowl. And there was, there was disquiet on social media because why are his nipples okay?
Oh yes.
Whilst female nipples would not be okay.
Yes.
And this then became a big feminist issue.
Oh yes, I remember there was this huge thing, and I saw a
they weren't that huge.
No. I saw this really interesting breakdown. I think I retweeted it. Let me see if I can find it. Which was someone talking about like all the differences between men and women. And that sort of thing. But I'm scrolling past this Guardian article, which was my favorite of the week, which was Taliban say, I haven't read the article, right, but just from the headline alone, and it says Taliban say they have no plans to seize Afghanistan by force. It makes me laugh every time because it's like, why would they tell you if they were going to? This just did. Taliban say we're going to seize Afghanistan by force. The same thing we've been doing or trying to do for the last 100 years. But there you go.
They will simply try and use persuasion.
It's just a question
persuasion.
Define persuasion.
Have you seen the film The Dictator with Sacha Baron Cohen?
Yes.
No, I cannot say that I've seen that film. No.
At the end, they become a democracy, and so they're polling people to see who they want to vote for. And it's the dictator on one side and the opposition candidate on the other, the two tents. And what you see is the camera zooming in, and there's a line of people for the opposition, and then a tank rolls into view, and everyone jumps to the other line. It's just like, yep, welcome to democracy and the third world. But yeah, no, it doesn't. Apparently, if I retweeted it, it's far, far away.
So was the tank by any chance driven by I don't know, an academic with a distinct accent?
No.
I just ask because he doesn't believe in democracy. So he believes that effectively would be the right thing to do, So you would have the Austrian Economist Party and you would have a populist party, and the people would be queuing at the populist party, only for him to drive his tank past to assure that everybody voted the right way.
Yeah.
I think he treats democracy like an ex-wife. The fact that he realizes that he has issues and problems with the ex, but he can't just quite put it out of his mind. She's always there in the background.
Let me see. Super Bowl halftime nipple rules feel inconsistent.
Does anybody remember Janet Jackson having a
well? Yes, that was
nipple
the
malfunction?
that was the famous coining of the term. What was it? Wardrobe malfunction.
Mm.
That's when that terminology was invented.
And then quickly followed by Judy Finnegan at the BAFTAs, I think.
They claimed to they claimed that it was an accident, and anybody who believed that was an accident, yes, you can't help them. They are past medical help. Yes.
No, I can't find the thing which I wanted to, but it's true that controversial nipples have been an interesting development, I suppose, over the last week. The biggest thing with it is, in my mind, is just like, who cares? In the greatest sense of the word, who cares? In if either thing were to have happened, like if it were.
Yes, but it is kind of once again a kind of denial of there being a biological difference between the two sexes, isn't it?
Yeah,
these opinion piece writers must have a brain meltdown if they get to the beach and they're just looking around and saying, but why are these women wearing bikini tops and these men aren't?
Yes, yeah. So the alien from outer space. Yes,
I believe the particular Twitter thread I was trying to find said something along the lines of, well, perhaps it's because we're the only one of approximately, I think it was like 5.2 million or 520,000 mammalian species to have no visible signifiers of fertility, and to be the only one with permanently engorged mammary glands. Very sexually put. But
yes, a very alluring way of describing the problem. Yes.
Yeah, and he was just like, that's why.
I mean, incidentally, there is also I mean, Rhubba will be able to back me up on this.
Mm-hmm.
There has been a marked decline in female nudity in movies. Because
why do you think I would be able to back you up on this?
Well, if you go
because
back,
of your
say,
many
20, 30 years, there was a lot more nudity. They would be kind of,
Yes.
the customary, bed scene in some film or whatever. And because, of course, the female of the species is much more interesting to look at, there would be a certain amount of female nudity. That has now been completely surpassed by the shirt taking off scene in movies. So basically, due to various polls that one has made with test audiences, one
you
has
have personally.
Of course, yes, I do all the polling. When it comes to the females in the audience, they claim to feel uncomfortable these days with female nudity. So if one wants to have a raunchy scene, then one gets the male protagonist to flash his six-pack. And there is no double standard in that whatsoever, apparently.
No, I think there was a time. I think the first major kind of commercial film to feature female nudity was Blow Up in 1966, and I think the last time, and I think the last time it was happening, I think could have been Shortcuts in 1996 with Julianne Moore, a natural redhead, as we found out. And I can't think. I think British is right. I can't think of any film in the last 20 years, mainstream film, where there's been female nudity. Not even, I think, topless scene in like
I mean, with with the male taking off his shirt scene, I believe there is. I cannot think of it right now. I believe there is even a kind of expression in the movie industry. I believe there was, wasn't it in some TV series for something Housewives? I don't know. It was a huge global hit. And I think there was a
Desperate
gardener.
Housewives.
Could well be. Yes, I think that's the one. And I think there was a gardener who obviously had the physique of a Greek statue, and he took off his shirt in one scene, and the female, one of the stars of the series, she deliberately kept flunking her line in order for him to yet again have to take his top off. And I believe I cannot remember the terminology, but apparently it refers to that scene. So now, whatever the word is for that particular scene, that is now what is used in Hollywood to describe the Matt Damon takes shirt off scene.
Oh, Matt Damon. And the scene you just described. Now flip this around. Imagine that was sometime in the mid-70s, and Benny Hill had that as a sketch in his show. Then
now we would be looking back and claiming it was one of the crimes against humanity exercised by the patriarchy in the past.
See,
and was just as bad as Jimmy Savile. Yes.
See, the funny thing with like male and female nudity in film and cinema in particular is, to me, it's like, particularly nowadays, right? Guy takes shirt off. It's a Hollywood venture or whatever, then he's going to be pretty ripped. Anyone who they want him to take his shirt off, he's going to be a pretty stacked gentleman. And a lot of men see that and they either go, that's unobtainable, or they go, that's something to aspire to in terms of physique, like he's in good shape. And whereas, according to, as chat says here, they say things like, females don't like female nudity because they feel so fat compared to skinny actresses. So it's different thing. Like with men, it's aspirational, and with women, it's unrealistic body standards.
Yes, those polls that they made with the audience did show that the male was fairly indifferent towards, male nudity in that respect.
We really are.
So the males kind of just shrug it off and go, "Oh yeah, okay, no, he's well built, but that's why he's a Hollywood star." So
says,
there's not this kind of, "Oh my God, I'm being compared here."
As a Polyphant in chat says, except for Swolo, everybody lost their minds over Swolo. Do you remember Swolo?
I'm afraid I can't. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Swolo is Star Wars. It's Ben Swolo, like Kylo Ren, the new bad guy, the new Sith villain. There's a scene where he's shirtless and he's just broad, but there's just nothing. He was so broad that he became a complete meme where he was Ben Swolo. Anyway, it was funny. But there you go.
Closer to home, I think we had last year, there was we had Bodyguard, the TV series where James Madden got his kit off completely nude in a couple of scenes, and yet I don't think Keely Hawes did. I think she always had the sheet up to her neck in the bedroom scene.
Yeah, as I say, it's clearly an established rule now that now if you want to in any way indicate that this is supposed to be anything in the air, so to speak, it must be the male, because otherwise the females in the audience begin to feel uncomfortable, and the males just simply don't care, and that's why you now have that rule. Whereas previously, previously it would have been the female of the species more likely to get her kit off, so to speak.
There was that joke years ago. I think who was it? Talking about Jenny Agutter, and saying the joke was, if the script absolutely demanded it, and if it was done in a tasteful way, Jenny Agutter would keep her clothes on in a film.
It's one way to do it. We've had a couple of comments, and I don't want to skip over them and have them be lost. So Binary Surfer has joined us and says, just tuned in. Don't tell me this is a prelude to not only a Britisher face reveal, but a nude scene also.
Well, I wouldn't want to get people's hopes up too much there.
there's a lot of talk about the Romans. Tell us about Roman porn laws. Tell us how men were over-sexualized in the ancient Roman Republic.
Well, now that you come to mention it, in ancient Rome.
And a couple of super chats too. So Tim Cornish has donated $5. Thank you very much, sir, and says, misgendering Sargon is immoral. A call is coming to adjust your thinking, Britisher.
Well, I mean, you know, the call, that would be the least of it, you know, given that he's taking me to court. Yes.
Indeed. And the Harry channel also has donated $5 and says, Rhubba, this one's for you. Where do the skydiver uniforms from UFO fall in your estimation? Wink.
They are so that there are a couple of moments in UFO where I think, okay, that's the 60s, I get it, but there's the skydiver costume, which is just a string vest, and you think, what were they thinking in that costume design? Because I get the purple wigs, I understand the purple wigs, yeah, I understand the Commander Straker Nehu jacket look, okay, but the string vest on the submarine crew, don't get it.
Can I just ask a question, just out of pure curiosity? I mean, and this is totally left of field, I understand, but what on earth are you talking about?
Yes,
Jerry Anderson's UFO.
1970.
It is the greatest underrated science fiction
This is
show.
supposed to mean something to me?
I have no idea. No,
Jerry Anderson,
the most underrated sci-fi
you
film
can
of
say
all
Jerry
time.
Anderson very loudly several times in a row.
Science
It
fiction
will
TV
not
series.
explain what you're talking about.
Right, the Harry channel's in tonight. You know what I'm talking about, Harry. You know.
Listen, the most underrated sci-fi of all time is Life Force.
That's a movie.
And it is in keeping with our theme.
No, I'm qualifying UFO as a TV series. It was the first live-action TV series Jerry Anderson did after years of working with puppets.
I see.
Don't check it out. Check it out.
I know nothing of this. Maybe we'll get there.
Well, I mean, personally, you know, given that I was there at the time of the recording, I still think that the greatest sci-fi series ever filmed for television, or, you know, not television, television didn't exist at the time, was, of course, Flash Gordon. I was the person who affixed the sparklers to the back of the spaceship whenever they had them lower them to the ground.
Of course you did. JS,
anybody who doesn't know what I'm talking about, you know, once this live stream is over, look up Flash Gordon on YouTube. You're bound to find some terribly crummy black and white series from long ago.
Okay. JS
chat knows what UFO is. Thank you, chat.
JS has donated £2 Britisher just to say 1970. You mean MCMLXX, surely?
Good one.
Oh, it makes me giggle. But do either of you know Life Force?
Yes.
Life Force is ridiculous for two enormous reasons. But the biggest the biggest thing about it was like it had a decent budget. Like the special effects in it are really good, but I believe it was described as like the best sci-fi vampires from space who make zombies film that has ever been produced by man. It's just phenomenal.
I can very well believe that. Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
And by the way, I don't mind saying 1970 as long as Anno Domini is in front of it.
Oh yeah. Oh, I got told that I'm to use common era and
no, categorically no.
By just to avoid offending the Muslims. Yep.
That is social justice. Dating. No.
You're not offending the Muslims. You are offending the kind of people we regularly rag on.
The people who get offended by things on behalf of other people, I know. But it was like, but when you get someone who says, "Oh, it means after death," and I go, "Anno Domini," thank you very much. It's not after death.
I'm an atheist, and I don't care. So I don't see, if I'm not offended, I don't see why anyone else should be offended.
Britisher, you can't be an atheist. You believe you are God.
Well, there is that. I mean, obviously, you know. I mean, how shall we say? God can't worship himself, hence he leaves it to others to do worshipping.
You do believe you exist, right? Well, or are you merely an idea in the eyes of man?
I look at it in terms of philosophy. You know, do any of us exist. But please move on.
Can you prove that we all exist?
Are we living in Dave
so-
Cullen's virtual reality world?
I'm going to drag us jarringly back to the present, and to the common era. It hurts so much to say that, and to a particular story, which is not our main story of the evening, although I will go on to that one if Sarah doesn't arrive shortly. But Amber Rudd has just linked universal credit to the rise in food bank use. You know, she's a genius, this Amber Rudd character, saying the increased use of food banks is partly down to the problems in rolling out universal credit. Well, you don't say, Amber. You don't say. There is a funny thing about the food bank sort of general model, right? Because the food bank is operated by the Trussell Trust, which is a charity. And it's a direct response to the fact that the government have cut benefits in general. Now, a lot of people are saying this is scandalous, right? The idea that people can't afford to eat is a horrendous thing to have happened. It's a horrible position to be in, etc. Except that these people couldn't afford to eat beforehand, but instead they were being paid benefits to eat. Instead, you know, like these people were being given money by other people from, you know, effectively from taxes, probably with a higher bureaucratic cost. And now, instead, the taxes are not going to that, and people are still providing food in the form of a food bank. But there seems to be this weird, not weird, I suppose, but like there's a much greater level of shame associated with taking your ticket and going to the food bank and collecting the canned goods or cereals or whatever that that they give out there. And I say that as someone who has worked in a food bank, and you know that people come in and they don't want to be seen doing it, and yet you'll have these same people who collect their you know, their universal credit every month directly into their bank accounts, and they don't think too hard about that in either direction. So to me, it's almost like our society can afford so much, and we can afford to provide for everyone, and we are providing for everyone. And now that we have stopped the government from providing at a massive cost to people, with also the added bonus of not knowing that they're actually spending that money on food, to now they have a source of food that they can get, which doesn't cost the taxpayer anything that they're not willing to give anyway voluntarily to this charity, which they are, and they are providing enough. I know of 3 food banks which are overstocked in my area, and not that that's, you know, something to be lauded anyway, but it's just the fact that people are giving enough to provide. Do you know what I'm saying? Whereas there just seems to be this massive thing where now the government is saying, like Amber Rudd is saying, that we must. The government is committed to. Where's it gone? The government is committed to tackling food insecurity, and it's just like, well, yeah,
Well,
but it's already being dealt with.
I think there's 2 things going on. First of all, I think the concept of food banks, and as you describe it, very much chimes in with that idea that fell flat on its face, the big society, which I thought was actually in theory a good idea, that perhaps it's time for the government to step out of providing support in the community and turn it over to charities and volunteers, and that would hopefully make the population as a whole thinking more altruistically. And I think that was a sound idea, that we don't look to the government to solve all our problems. But I think the other thing that's going on here, I can't help but feeling that Amber Rudd's comments are directed at the other wing of the Conservative Party, because whose idea was it for universal credit? It was Ian Duncan Smith. And I think we're seeing a power play here between the conservative wing of the party and the kind of centre right, almost in bed with the Blairites wing of the party.
Well, if I dare come in, I don't know what the lion is in the background, but you know, I would say universal credit. If anything, Amber Rudd is more than likely in a roundabout way pointing out the fact that this this entire concept has long since failed. And to me, I just do not understand how one can continue with a failed policy on and on and on and on, when no matter how many tweaks and no matter how much testing one has done, one still cannot get it right. I was perfectly in favor of the universal credit idea when it was first put forward. But to my mind, it's a matter of, okay, you implement it, you make it work. But once you have tried and tried and tried and tried, and every signal you're getting is this is not working, that's when I say, I'm sorry, but now it's just become bloody stubbornness. And this is one of the things we often get in British politics, where one party kind of weds itself to a particular policy and simply sticks its fingers in its ears and continues insisting this is working, this is working. Why? Because it was our idea and we can't be wrong.
Britisher. Don't you realise real universal credit hasn't been tried?
Being tried.
Yes, yeah, precisely. And no, I just feel that it hasn't worked, and I think, yes, more than likely for the reasons Rhubba points out, chances are this is a matter of various wings among the Conservative Party kind of sniping at each other. But I think, even though I don't like Amber Rudd, in this case, she is more than likely partly speaking the truth by attacking the policy, by effectively saying, look, this just isn't working. Why the hell are we persevering with something we haven't managed to get to work? It's a bit like, the NHS computer scheme, if you remember, that went on for years and years and years.
Oh, yeah.
And cost billions until eventually one had to concede. One simply couldn't get it to work. And it's that sort of thing. At some point, surely, kind of the lights start flashing and you begin to realize you cannot make this thing work. And in the eyes of the public, this idea has by now been so damaged simply due to the failings that you feel there is no way you'll be able to sell this to them.
I do wish sometimes that when MPs speak out on a policy, that they also follow it up with a suggestion as to what would work. So in Amber Rudd's case, she's saying universal credit is not working. Okay, fair enough. So what's the plan? What's the alternative? And this is why I think it's more political sniping, because there isn't an alternative vision
would
put
simply
forward.
be, let's return to what we had until someone comes up with a better idea.
Yeah.
But the fact that this, the fact that this is our idea, and the only alternative is to go back and basically to concede that this hasn't worked. As far as I'm concerned, if you try something because you think it's a good idea, and as I say, when I first heard of this, I thought this sounds like something worth trying. But once you've tried it and it doesn't work, well, then there is no shame in then basically saying, okay, look, we thought this was a good idea, but we've tried it out, it doesn't work. And then just go back to what you had until somebody comes up with another idea worth trying.
I think they did that, didn't they, in the late 80s with the poll tax? That was so unpopular. They did end up abandoning it and coming up with something different. And it probably bought the Conservatives a little bit of extra time in government.
Yes, and it was calamitous as a policy. Because if you remember, one only started reacting once there were riots in England. And I'm afraid that is, to the eternal shame of the Tories. They lumbered the Scots with that for years and years and years.
Yeah, that was the thing.
When the Scottish were basically, when they were complaining about it and they were rioting and they were demonstrating, one just didn't care. One basically saw the Scots as a testing ground for it, and it was only once one then brought it into England, and then suddenly the proverbial hit the fan. That's when one thought, oh well, we'll have to walk this back, and it did irreparable harm to the relationship of England and Scotland for a generation or two.
Yeah, I mean
the SNP are effectively still banking on that today.
That whole third term of Thatcher's government was where things were unraveling, and they were very lucky in 1992. I think it was more sort of Labour couldn't field a competent alternative in '92. But that third Thatcher term, it just everything. That's when the wheels came off for her personally and the Conservatives in general.
Oh yes, as I say, it started going seriously wrong. The only reason they stayed in power is because there was no viable alternative. And that is the importance of having a viable opposition. You know, sometimes when you sort of see the discourse, particularly on Twitter and things like that, you almost feel as if either side is kind of hoping for the other side to look as idiotic as possible.
Of
Whereas
course.
I think it's actually in everyone's interest to have both sides be viable, both sides be good. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
That means you have a choice. The democracy actually works because you can express a preference and not merely, oh, shock horror, I'll vote for anybody as long as that lot don't get in.
We think a two-party system is bad, but imagine a one-party system. It's not exactly ideal, is it?
Well, yes, but when you actually don't have a real alternative, you are effectively stuck with a one-party system.
Yes.
I mean, if you have got the choice between the Tories, whoever leads them, and a Labour Party led by Jeremy Corbyn, you don't actually have a choice.
No.
Because it doesn't really matter what happens on the Tory side, you end up having to vote for them because the alternative is just too horrendous.
I'm going to dive into some super chats and then I'm going to go into another story. So we have Dylan98 with €5. Thank you very much. Who says, no wonder the sun never set on the British Empire because not even God could trust the English in the dark thoughts on this comment by Shashi Tharoor. I have no idea, but I presume that that's relating to an earlier comment. I couldn't find it, I'm afraid. If you post it down in the chat, I'll read that out. But Sutsgoen has given 50 kroner and says, giving food away without discrimination perverts incentives. I've seen people wearing suits picking up knife-free food en masse. Remove governments and the EU. Always
Remove
good to get
governments altogether. Okay.
Apparently.
Interesting. Yeah.
There you go.
It's an idea.
And JS says £2. I was at the poll tax riot. That's how old I am. So thank you everybody for your comments. Have we seen God Emperor Trump?
Yes. I absolutely laughed my head off. As I've played a few games of Warhammer 40k in my time, I just thought this is just brilliant.
I have seen the graphic. I don't, I cannot say that I've been laughing. I just saw it and went, another one of those memes.
No, I mean,
but the actual footage is hysterically funny because
there is actually footage to it. I've just seen a picture.
No, they made an enormous
Italian TV commentary. It's brilliant.
There was an Italian TV commentary. It's on Susan's channel. But basically this Italian designer decided to make an enormous I don't know how tall it is. It's enormous. It's called The Master Drone by its artist Fabrizio Galli, depicting Trump as the God Emperor from the Warhammer 40k series. The Emperor of Mankind, the greatest embodiment of universal order.
Yeah, it's kind of depressing, isn't it, when someone who is actually an Italian and would refer to God Emperors then has to actually refer to a computer game. Yeah, but please go on.
Tell us more about Italy, Britisher. I don't know. Do you know much about Italy? But
in those days, you could get the Senate to make you a god.
So the website, there's a parade website with.
Do you want, whilst not so obvious is thinking, do you want to know the ultimate irony of Constantine the Great's death? When he died, they obviously sought to bestow honors upon him, but this was the man who Christianized the Roman Empire. So the Senate, not quite knowing what to do, what kind of honors do we bestow on him? I mean, we can't bestow on him a lesser honor than his predecessors, declared him a god.
Can you say "I am the Senate," Britisher?
I am the Senate.
Thank you very much.
I know I've dug myself a very deep hole here.
Well, no one appears to have
I
made
can
a
even
rep.
go further. You know, what was it? Louis XIV, wasn't it? L'État, c'est moi.
But so the reason for this float was because they said Donald wants to go to the moon, travel to Mars, and create the first space army. Do we remember the Space Force memes back in the day? Yep. And they said the website says the time of intellectuals, philosophers of old and worn culture is over. So the float featured Trump's head adorned with the Romanesque, the classic leaves, the laurel crown. But
just Roman, not Romanesque. Romanesque is an architectural style.
Very well. But he's dressed head to toe in.
I'm making myself very popular here.
You're very popular. Well, always. And in the you've got you saying criticizing my language, and in chat you've got Binary Surfer going, Denmark isn't a real country, changed my mind. Oh, just still causing trouble. But there were lots of little things in this float, and I don't know why, but I can't get many images of.
Dear God, I am just looking at the God Emperor in action.
Oh yes.
Yes, I am beginning to understand that. No, I thought this was some kind of computer graphic.
No. They built a 50-foot thing.
I mean, it just puts the Trump balloon to even more shame.
It really does. And there's talk about getting it over to the UK at some point. Just for his second visit.
Do it.
But
I can see kind of Donald Trump after his presidency is over, kind of opening a theme park to his presidency.
Well, people are saying he should buy it and put it on the White House lawn, right?
And that would be one of the exhibits, and so too would the blow up Trump.
With the many faces of Donald Trump, from baby to God Emperor. No, but there's lots of little details on this, right? So his knee pads are Lady Liberty's face, as far as I can remember.
He's got Putin on his shoulder.
Putin's on his shoulder, yeah, and the Illuminati triangle on the hilt of his sword, as well as Twitter birds as the crossguard. And I believe that the text down the sword says something along the lines of tariffs or something like that, because that's his weapon. Tariffs, Twitter, and Putin. And for some reason, there's a communist hammer and sickle I could just make out on the.
I think that is in order to help identify Putin, because
help the
otherwise
Russian.
You're a little bit confused as to what that figure is.
Yeah, I mean,
Twitter.
I like the the related kind of search options are there's Twitter sword, parade float, mimetic meaning, nightmare fuel. And but yes, it's enormous. It moves, the eyes move and everything. Like it's really well put together, but it is terrifying in its own way.
But has anybody any idea what this is? I mean, it says here Carnevale di Viareggio. So basically this is some kind of carnival.
Oh yes, so it's this
Viareggio,
massive.
Is this a region, or is this a?
It's if I go who we are info, let's try info. Why not? It's a town where they just have a massive parade every year.
It's in Tuscany, apparently.
I like this. The Jedster has said, "Where can one worship this magnificent shrine?"
It is, there we go. It has for 144 years been the most spectacular Italian event, testimony to the artistic and organizational ability of Italians. Since 19...
Did they just say organizational ability of the Italians?
Presumably. I think it says since 1987, it has been the authority that organizes the manifestation. I presume it's either 1887 or that it's really not 144 years. So...
Yeah, it seems to be sort of on the coast, west of Lucca, which in turn is west of Florence.
It is enormous. But they have loads of floats, and the guy who made this one won I think 3rd place last time, doing something else Trump themed. But yeah, there we go. But he said it was sort of like, he said it's not spiteful, but it does represent that we have entered the era of fantasy and virtual life, and so on. The master drone flies over Via Reggio as we prepare to pay the price. But of course, everyone's basically infatuated with this thing. So we've got things like do you speak much Italian, Britisher? Can you translate this?
Hang on, what am I looking at? I can't really speak Italian. No, actually, that's French. Ils sont fous ces Romains. That's Obelix.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
You know, they're crazy. Those Romans.
Obelix around 50 BC. Ave Trump.
The whole world is captivated by Trump. Is this supposed to be an anti-Trump statement? It's like more like pro-liberty. I love our president, and all this stuff. And then, of course, there's Britisher under his pseudonym of Rocky A. Bullswinkle, saying Rome's greatest general was perhaps Flavius Aetius.
Aetius. Again, I mean it's a bold statement. I think he's known as the last Roman. But that's so basically he achieved a great victory, but it's a stretch to basically say he was the greatest.
Of course, you would have a problem with that. There you go. I'm being sent something. Let me just have a look there. Anyway, let us move on to the main story of the evening, what you're all here to see. I'm here to present a professor being very naked. I would share her Twitter profile, but it's basically all nudity.
Yes.
And I don't particularly want to be banned from this platform.
I think we can kind of agree that this particular professor is a grade A exhibitionist.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I think
wrapping it all up in, or not as the case may be, in the claim of this having some kind of, greater meaning. And I remember when she emerged on the BBC, I actually said, "Oh, I bet she has found other reasons, mainly feminist reasons or whatever, to strip off."
And looks like a dropped lasagna.
Lo and behold, then I saw some pictures and went, "Hang on a moment, I recognise her. I've seen this. I've seen nonsense that she has produced before." So yes, she basically uses every opportunity she can get to basically strip off and claim that it's for some greater reason.
I think she's got the words "leaves us naked" tattooed on her flesh, whereas the bit that you can rub out and change is today it's Brexit, tomorrow it'll be the Stonehenge
just put on with
tunnel.
marker pen.
Oh,
yes.
gross.
Friday it's going to be dredging the Avon and Somerset Canal will leave us naked.
What was it I said earlier? I said something along like, someone said, you're really mean to this naked professor, Mark. I said, I don't know what it is about her. Maybe it's the fact that she has a doctorate and I feel decorum should be valued.
Well, if you allow me to go on a rant, this would be the moment for me to do so.
Go on a rant, dear British.
Yes, because I think it is slowly high time that we effectively give academia 12 months. And they have 12 months to clear this up, or else we will declare all professorships and doctorates nil and void and start again. Because as far as I'm concerned, the idea that the rest of the academics are just basically saying, "Oh, well, there's just a few cooks." No, this person has a doctorate or possibly even a professorship. I don't know, because I've heard her referred to as a professor. So basically, that means, as far as I'm concerned, she is a professor and she is the equal of any other professor. The idea that we're supposed to make some kind of differentiation when you people have elevated those people to such positions of standing, you then have to understand that we then start seeing crazy people like this, and not just this. I mean, as I say, they're occurring everywhere. I mean, do you remember there was that professor of black studies from the university the university?
Oh, was it on Channel 4?
The city of Birmingham or whatever. And he was there trying to tell us that they shouldn't have built a statue to Bomber Command anyway, because it was just a war crime and whatever. Because obviously his study of black studies led him to have such expertise. And Sarah actually showed me an excerpt of one of his papers, which was about the psychosis of whiteness.
The caucasity of our being.
You just think, okay, fine, this man is a professor. Okay, we'll take him at his word, but that means I will treat every other professor as being a moron such as him. It is for the faculty to get rid of these people or accept that we will measure them all by the same standard. The idea that they're all kind of quivering in fear because they don't want to take these people on and expel them is nonsense. At some point, they have to, if they wish to be treated with deference for their position, they have to actually be willing to defend that position. If they are just willing to leave it to lunatics such as these, then that is the way in which we will see them all. And that will mean that in the eyes of the public, academia will become worthless. It's as simple as that.
And
Because,
Britisher played the fiddle.
well, no, I'm
as
sorry,
academia burned.
This has become, this has really become absolutely unbearable by now. You know, that we've got people behaving this way, claiming to, demanding deference for what they are. I mean, Sarah had a coming together, and so did the academic agent, with a gentleman who was, I believe, a professor of Middle Eastern studies, who once again, just like most of these people, for some reason doesn't look like what we normally expect a professor to be. In this case, I believe he had a magnificently plaited beard or whatever. This was the person who told the academic agent that the revolution in Iran wasn't an Islamic revolution. And when the academic agent basically told him, "You are aware, of course, that my family are from Iran," he told him that that doesn't mean that he would know anything about it.
That's hilarious.
And and I actually then watched some of his video that he was constantly trying to shill and get people to watch his lecture. And it was just nothing else but something like 50 minutes. I mean, admittedly, I only managed to stomach about half of it, but it was just nothing but pure anti-American claptrap, if you know what I mean.
Mm.
So basically, any ill that had ever befallen the Middle East was the fault of the Americans. And you just kind of realize that, yeah, this was just basically his basic political outlook. And no matter what he was looking into, his advocacy research would always produce that result. Now, as far as I'm concerned, it's down to the faculty to get rid of these people, or we will have to start treating them all as people of that nature.
The trouble, right? So the particularly with like what you might term the soft sciences, right? The social sciences, the humanities, etc. No, I know, but I'm talking specifically about this. This is one thing I've noticed in my term of study, going down the psychology route, is that you can infer almost anything from any population that you want. And the reason you can do this, typically in these particular disciplines, is not because the scientific method itself is lacking, or that they're using any particular nasty tricks, to skew research or whatever. It's one, that they infer things based on their own worldview with their own context, which is not necessarily present in the study. And secondly, they use abysmally tiny sample sizes.
Yes.
So there was this huge thing about like this massive, they considered this groundbreaking study. And I had to do this thing. It was the only study in this whole list of different meta-analyses and so on was one.
Not meta-analyses, please, not meta-analyses.
Right.
That's about as phony science as you can possibly get.
Meta-analyses are not too bad because they're not allowed to infer a causal link. They're only allowed to inform future research. But the actual studies which were then analyzed were like 18 people here, 16 people there, and it was all a very specific age bracket of typically female students,
Well,
because they were all done by PhD candidates who could
I
only
remember
get
a particular
people
study
from
that
the
is
uni.
used when it comes to pornography and pornography law here in Britain. Obviously, my having crossed swords with various censorship campaigners over the years, there is this study that comes out of the woodwork every now and again, whereby some laboratory tests were made, whereby people were basically, males were asked certain questions regarding their treatment and their attitudes towards women.
Sure.
Then they are shown pornography, and thereafter they are asked the same questions again. So obviously the finding was that there was a slight drift towards coarser attitudes towards women after having viewed pornography. Therefore, this clearly shows that pornography kind of instigates violence. The thing is that the people who made the study themselves absolutely object to that being used in such a fashion, even though other academics are in fact using that result to back up some of their, statements.
You get what's equivalent of this
is the beauty.
Why?
The people who made the original study actually made other experiments, one of which was having men ride an exercise bike for a quarter of an hour, which actually got the same result.
Mm-hmm.
But that, funnily enough, is never mentioned when you have these.
Well, there's a difference. They'll do things like, was your result significant? Because the word significant is marvelous.
Yes,
they think it means everything.
Yes.
And you go, well, significance is not correlated at all to effect size. So it's like you can have a very tiny effect, and that can be considered significant. Just you've identified something, but it's basically meaningless. And then, but you've also got this idea of hypotheses. If you phrase your hypothesis in a certain way, then you can have a lower significance threshold. And there was also this massive issue with replicability. So they never used to have to, it was basically one and done. Oh, we've examined that, we don't need to do that again. Whereas now they're actually going, oh, we need to replicate stuff, because actually if it's not replicable, you might have basically forged all your data, and actually we're finding that quite a few people actually did this to get the results they wanted.
Yes.
So that's not ideal. And then you also have this idea that basically, as I say, you can take this very tiny snapshot of a population, and you can do it. Whereas you look at any kind of proper think tank economists or anyone who deals with large statistics, and it's sad that psychologists can't get the sample sizes they need to be able to do anything that might be even vaguely considered representative. But that doesn't mean that the work that they do can be considered representative, which is what it is being considered. Which is very sad.
But I would just like to point out, because you sort of said the soft sciences, there are also the hard sciences. Physics. I mean, we would sort of think, surely that's cut and dried, right? Physics, that's a proper science.
Well,
until you start talking about string theory.
Until you start talking about what?
String theory.
Okay, what about string theory?
Yeah, I mean, for 30 years now, people have come up with all sorts of mathematical claptrap, trying to hypothesize on whether the universe is made up of strings that vibrate.
Yes.
Yes. I'm sorry, this is science. It's merely that they've found something that cannot actively be disproven.
Well, it can't be observed, but they can try and prove it.
They're just further and further elaborating on an ever more ludicrous concept.
It's inferential. It's about what can you influence and how can you influence it. So the idea being that we should be able to see certain results if we influence it in certain ways, and if we are able to influence it.
What actual results have we seen in all this time?
Well, nothing yet, but that's why it's theoretical physics. I mean,
it's nonsense.
It also doesn't mean that it's not in the realm of human endeavor in terms of understanding the universe as much as it is getting a practical application out of it.
Yeah, Donald Rumsfeld operated the Department of Defense on much the same principles. You know, if you just because you can't find any evidence of weapons of mass destruction doesn't mean they're not there. He
Look,
used the same thing in the 1970s to say just because we can't find, well,
That's
because we can't find Russian super submarines
Rubber.
proves they exist.
Rubber. That's a ridiculous parallel to draw. But
No.
it is. Well, I understand that the stories themselves are true, but it's a ridiculous parallel to draw. It's like exploring these sorts of fringe edges of science and the stuff that we don't understand got us quantum mechanics and stuff like that. You know, we wouldn't have quantum computers and that sort of thing now.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
but
but when I mean,
the result
you know,
proves the theory
Rubber
because
and
you
I
can
are
have
old
quantum
enough
computers.
to remember when string theory started becoming fashionable at certain American universities,
Oh, true.
and already then, other physicists were saying this is complete garbage, and yet it became one of the fashionable things which attracted a lot of finance, and it has kind of been living off that ever since. But already then there was a lot of what we would call the hard scientists kind of looking at this saying this is absolute rubbish, and it's still going on today, and they've just elaborated upon elaborations upon elaborations, and they're working out all sorts of things, and you just think, I'm sorry, this is just more hypothesis upon the hypothesis. This is this is the same thing as if they would have basically found some mathematical way of expressing that the universe is made up of avatars of boys riding unicorns through a space nebula.
The Harry Channel has pointed out that perhaps we're a bit out of our depth on theoretical physics, seeing as strings.
No, I fully understand, but this is just it. This is the deference angle, as in, okay, well, we obviously don't have the expertise. Yes, in that case, we don't have the expertise to criticize a professor of economics who is trying to express something through nudity, because professorship, because academia.
You can
This is just the point.
Britisher, you can criticize whoever you want. It's just what I'm saying is, like, as Harry Channel says, string theory does make predictions, for examples about the Higgs boson, and their predictions are not found. You know, they are hopefully predicated on stuff which is going to be empirically provable.
No, I'm sorry. As far as I'm concerned, the string theorists should be walked to the end of Brighton Pier and pushed.
Well, seeing as Brighton Pier no longer exists because it burnt down, that's quite impressive.
Well, I believe they had several of them there. Not all of them have burnt down.
Whilst we're in academia, did anybody catch the story that because not enough women get firsts in classics or in mathematics,
Yes.
that they should lower the criteria?
Yes,
Oh, yes,
something
this comes
must
up
be
every
done,
couple-
I
this
think
comes
was
up every couple of
was
years.
once again the phrase. Yes.
It's current year, don't you know?
Mm.
Tim Cornish has interjected with $5. Thank you very much, and says, "Meanwhile, real mysteries and problems persist." It's very true, to an extent, but I mean, like, it's up to private institutions what they fund. The issue is that a lot of them are publicly funded, in the hope that we will find things. But the string theory is losing momentum because of the failures with the Higgs boson. It's just that, a theory, a game theory.
Well, yes, it was one of those beautiful theories which basically was that abstract that there was absolutely no way in which it could actually be disproven, so to speak.
Redacted Sapien points out
going on.
Einstein was a theoretical physicist, and what did he ever do for us? Oh, wait a moment.
Yes, obviously, I am dismissing the next Einstein.
He's got you by the pith right now.
Oh yes, of course. Yes. Yeah.
I think the difference with Einstein is that with some of his theories, they go, other scientists went, okay, well, let's give that a whirl. Oh, you can split an atom after all.
Yes, whereas vibrating strings, and then of course, isn't there also loop theory or something like that, whereby they started talking about loopy strings or spiraling strings and all sorts of. This is what I mean. Elaboration.
We can all agree that this entire thing is a very knotty problem.
It's true.
Well, no, to me, it's just the same thing as what do we call it? Theologians debating amongst each other how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. You know,
As many as you want.
that's what we've come to. And I think to a certain extent, yes, it is for basically for academia and for faculty to dare I say it, clean up their room.
So what you're saying is you're actually Peterson in disguise, Britisher. When you peel off the monocle, you gain a very Kermit-esque voice. And
bloody Marxists.
Exactly. Oh dear. I think we've shat all over academia for long enough this evening. Although Dr. Victoria Bateman, who is the naked professor, every time I scroll slightly too far and someone is got a photo of her full frontal and it's just swinging her udders across a stage or whatever. But there's some funny stuff, right? So she did this whole thing about the naked truth, and it's important to use my body as a staple. And if you believe that I'm using my body as anything other than a political statement, then you're saying that we should only use our bodies for sex and babies.
Yes, and of course, it's also saying so much about how we view nudity of women and how we view women, and you just, oh, for heaven's
No, it's
sake.
about how we view decency and not indecent exposure. And it's a miracle you haven't been arrested yet, because if you were a man doing this, oh boy, would you be. There was this thing because people were drawing parallels between her and I believe he calls himself the Naked Rambler or something like that. And he walked in
Yes,
the 80s.
I think when it comes to the Naked Rambler, we have to be. Yes, I know he kind of he tried to walk the length of the nation naked and whatever, and obviously there was a certain exhibitionism going on or whatever. But I think when it comes to the Naked Rambler, there was something else that kicked in.
I have no idea. I only know what I've just seen. Do you know anything more than that?
Oh, yes, this was a notorious case. And you just sort of felt, look, if they would just have let him do it, it would have been the end of it. But it became a battle of wills between the authorities and him.
Mm.
So effectively, he would leave the courtroom, having once again been told off, or and he would leave the courtroom. He would head out to some kind of out of town to some kind of wandering place or whatever, and start stripping off again to continue on his travels. And effectively, it was entirely down to his determination to basically finish the tour, to basically do Land's End to John O'Groats. And it became this fight between him and the authorities, I think, particularly in Scotland. And you just sort of felt they just didn't want to let him succeed. And you just felt, had they just basically turned a blind eye, let him finish, that would have been the end of it. But no one had to make a battle of it. And I felt that was a massive mistake.
The Scottish judicial system interfering where they're not wanted. What a surprise. The other thing about Dr. Victoria Bateman, if you type her name into Google, the second line after her name, the second line is Dr. Victoria Bateman images. No thanks.
No.
Yes, but this is just it. When it comes to the Naked Rambler, the thing with the Naked Rambler was that he was constantly being arrested and constantly being put through the courts, and then detained for so and so long and whatever, and then set free again, and then he would start off again doing the same thing. This is just it. Nobody, including myself, is talking of Dr. Victoria Bateman to be arrested. That's just the point.
No.
If she wants to do these ludicrous shenanigans, she's perfectly free to do them.
If she wants to do them in the privacy of a private show where she gives a speech or whatever, and people agree and they know exactly what they're getting into, or she wants to go on a radio show where she said full well, if I get there, I'm getting my kit off. That's perfectly fine.
On a radio show.
On a radio show, yeah. But I mean, it was a televised radio show as well, so
but they only showed her from the shoulders up. So what was the point?
Of course, because they have some sense of common decency. But yeah.
I felt
Anyway,
sorry for John Humphreys because he's in his 70s now, isn't he? I mean, that's not.
she's.
Well,
I'm
if I would have been John Humphreys, I would have returned the favour and then watched her face.
Well, of course, she did offer a naked debate to Jacob Rees-Mogg while she was on there. But the the thing with this thing is, like, I'm scrolling through her timeline or on her Twitter profile now, and there's a lot of talking about like naked protest or sex work. It's my body, my choice. Blah 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 blah, and so on. And it's amazing. Like all the comments are just. I voted Remain in Brexit, but if there had been a referendum on whether or not you should get your kit off, I would have been a resounding off. So I don't think perhaps the support she's getting is coming from the place she wants it to come from.
Well, all I can say is that's economists for you.
What?
Well, she's an economist.
Is she?
Yes,
well,
she's an economist.
According to this, she is a fellow of Cambridge, economics, history, and feminism. There you go, Oxford PhD.
So there you go, economist. So that tells you all. She more than we'll have to get her together with Academic Agent, and they can talk about the Austrian school.
You can imagine it now. We'll have them on a. I'll hire out a room like I did for Peter Hitchens, and I'll have them sit down, debate style, with the two chairs across from one another.
Will
Make sure it's a room with lots
favour?
of mirrors.
She's written a book actually that is going to be published on the 29th of March called "The Sex Factor: How Women Made the West Rich."
Of course.
I can already tell that you're salivating at that idea, Britisher, and that you're going to.
I can see how her book will. I can already see how her book will be full of quotes, quotations from Hayek and Rothbard and
Oh,
mind you, it won't come with a jacket.
No jacket on the book. Oh dear. And the only comes in paperback because hardback it's too patriarchal. But the so a couple of super chats have come through. JS, another £2, thank you, says, do you believe in string theory? I'm afraid not. With the afraid not. Get it?
yes,
Get it?
yes.
Just no one's laughing, you see. And the Harry Channel $2 who says, Britisher, admit you are Gaius Suetonius Tranquillus.
Tranquillus.
Tranquillus, yes. I have no idea what Suetonius means, but
No, I'm actually more Lurkio.
references. I don't get the references. Tell us about your.
You get bigger stickers.
How's your
Frankie
project?
Howard, Lurkio, up Pompeii.
How's your
For the prologue? Yeah.
How's your
nay and thrice nay?
Very well. How's your project coming along, Britisher? I hear you getting many people to contribute to it.
Well, yes. Now that I've finally managed to get the last contributor to contribute the second half that he forgot earlier to contribute.
Look, just because I didn't read your entire second draft.
I now will be able to complete it. Yes.
Marvelous. Oh, I was the only missing piece. God damn it. I expect that to be out tomorrow, Britisher.
Actually,
did you provide Britisher with a variety of voices and accents?
You are on the panel with the person who was the first to contribute his
Of course
section.
he was. He's got nothing better to do with his life except
this is actually true.
Eat biscuits and voice act for the Britisher. Oh dear. Will you be getting your baps out for the lads on the video, Britisher?
Sorry?
Will you be getting your baps out for the lads on camera for the video?
Well,
I mean, you want to be prioritised by the YouTube algorithm.
No, in the answer I would have to give you, but let's just say no. Yes.
No. Oh dear. Anyway, Is there anything else? Have you made a video recently, Robert, that you want to shill before the end?
Oh, I just did one this morning. It's I'm jumping on the week in review bandwagon, but I thought I'd do Monday morning so that people on their Monday morning coffee break can
You
watch my
decided
stuff.
to take on Dave Cullen.
Yeah. Well, he's kind of faded a bit.
There you go.
So I mentioned Dr. Bateman and
So
the two
basically
Jacks.
your sales pitch is watch my Monday weekly roundup because Cullen is fading.
No, I don't want to diss him because he has been quite inspirational.
I'm just
to what
being
I do.
mischievous. You
But I talk about the two Jacks, Dorsey and Conte.
Okay. Cool.
Yep.
So there you go.
And I'm still researching on Tony Blair and the Russian invasion of Afghanistan. Working on it.
So that's what Rubber's working on. The Britisher is going to have a video out. I will try my best to get a video out this week. Unfortunately, I can't quite assign the same time to it as I previously could. I've lost probably $200 or so off of Patreon. So unfortunately, the Saturday mornings that I would Saturdays that I would put aside to making some more content have had to go on regular work. But if you want to help alleviate that, you can you can support me via Patreon or PayPal in the description below. Thank you everyone for watching this week's Fake Accents Unite, and I hope to see you on the next one. Take care everyone, and goodbye.
Toodle pip.
Toodle pip.